It's that time again. If you're a real estate agent and you're looking to finally build a business that creates consistent cash flow, but you're concerned about all of the market disruptions, relax. You found your safe haven to learn the secret to success. List you last. Welcome to this week's podcast. Hey, welcome fellow listing agents. Bob Mangold, the listing coach here with episode 38 of the If You List You Last podcast. Hey, as always, thanks for listening, sharing, and downloading. This week, I'm going to share the training class I held for my own team on the upcoming changes to buyer compensation and listing language. Now, this was a class I opened up to agents at all companies, and we had plenty of agents from other companies. And I think that's important because this affects the industry. And I believe going forward, it's going to be critical that we're all working together. Now, I did share some specifics on our company requirements and language on our home boss listing members and real estate asset advisor coaching clients. And of course, I shared some opinions. But the most important message I want to convey today is to talk with your broker and MLS about your company and state specifically. There is no uniform forms that covers all states and companies. Every MLS has different rules and guidelines. Every state has different rules and guidelines. And then, of course, your broker probably has some specific ones. So make sure that you check with both of those entities. Now, this class went for 90 minutes. There's a ton of stuff to cover. And I think that's too long for a podcast. So I'm going to break this podcast into two sessions. And in the podcast notes, I'll include the links to the documents I discussed in the training, and all of our listing documents that we have at EXP is available to every agent. And I'd recommend bring them to your broker and have them review them. We freely share those with all companies and all agents. And finally, just a quick reminder, make sure you join our Real Estate Asset Advisor Facebook group so you can join in on the conversation, share your thoughts, comments, or questions on any of the topics I discuss right here on the podcast. So let's get started. So let me tell you what we're doing. Typically, this call that we do is for our real estate asset advisor and home boss members, but I wanted to open it up today. So we have some people in from other companies, and that's perfectly fine. I wanted to open it up really to any agent, any company that's out there, because come August 17th, and some states have already implemented different things. Guys, it's going to be critical that the real estate agent community works together on this. And I'm not naive to think that they all will, or that everybody's going to play nice. I actually have a couple examples for you today where I could tell you, hey, these people won't play nice. So what I will tell you, though, if you're from another company or you're not a real estate asset advisor member, I'm going to cover some things that are related to EXP, and I will certainly cover some things that are related to home boss and the real estate asset advisor program, things like that. But the purpose of this call today is really get everybody very clear on both buyer's agent comp and how to really fill out the listing agreement, and maybe to have the conversation with the seller in the right way. So here's what I'm going to start out with. The number one caveat for everything is every state is different and every MLS is different. So I'm going to be cautious about telling you, hey, this is the way it is, because it may be that way in Arizona, or maybe that way in California, but it's not in Texas, or it's not in Indiana, or it's not in your MLS. There are different MLSs in states like California. I just know of 9 in the southern portion of the state that have 9 different MLSs. And to my knowledge, all 9 of them have some different guidelines, different fines and penalties and things of that nature. So what I will tell you is the answer that I'm going to give you overall on what we've done as a company. But the number one answer is going to be check with your broker first and check with your MLS. The MLS will be the ones issuing fines. And so you need to take and get with that. If you're not with EXP, I'm going to share with you the documents that we use, because they have been many different places deem that as the forms, and what EXP's done is the guideline for what other companies should be using. right? So the Consumer Federation of America, who was hugely behind the push for this lawsuit, actually came out and said that our form should be the model that every company should be using. And our stuff is detailed enough. Do you guys know what the Zillow 7-day touring agent is, or they refer to it as a touring agent? If you don't, it's like they sign a buyer broker agreement for 7 days and you can show them different houses. Zillow actually has exempted EXP agents, or I shouldn't say exempted, but said we can use our buyer broker forms instead of theirs. So that's how detailed our executives went in and made sure that they wrote these things in a way that protects us as a company. So one of the things I want to do is share a couple things with you here. Lower attendees' hands. Yeah, okay. Let's see where I can add. Oh, chat box for you. Never mind. There. I'm going to put a video in here, a video link in here that Leo Pareja, who is our CEO, and Holly Mabry, who's our senior VP of operations, did a call last week, and I'm going to share some of the documents with you, but I highly urge you to watch that thing, make notes, pay attention to it. Don't do it like, hey, while you're watching TV or you're on the phone or you're distracted. What I will tell you, folks, is that I want to tell you first, things aren't as big of a change as what you think they are. And what's really changed is not how we get paid so much. It's how we explain it to people and how we disclose it. And there's a lot more paperwork, forms, and functionality in what we'll have to do. But the basis of buyers agents not being paid is nonsense. Most sellers will understand that they pay that, and we're going to talk about it. But I want to share something with you first. Because in every market, everybody always, oh my God, like yesterday, the stock market totally crashed, right? And everybody freaked out. All this stuff is going on with real estate agent compensation. Everybody's freaking out. Just understand this, folks. In chaos, there's opportunity. And what I have on the screen right now is a Manhattan office building that sold for $332 million in 2000 and sold at auction yesterday for $8.5 million. Jared, you do commercial. You have commercial buildings. Would you have loved to have bought a commercial building in Manhattan for $8.5 million?
Yeah, I would. I'd be all over it.
I know. Trust me. I wish I knew about it. We'd have put something together. But the point of it, folks, is there's opportunity in everything. And I actually believe there's a lot of opportunity now for agents. I actually think this is probably one of the biggest opportunities in real estate right now. And so just there's an opportunity in this, right? You could buy a building for $8.5 million. Yesterday, about 3 weeks ago, I bought a bunch of NVIDIA stock at $130 a share. It went down to $91 a share yesterday. Everybody freaking out. What do? I bought more. Guess what? It's $104.50 about an hour ago. $15 a share on it. There's always opportunity in chaos and fear. So don't fear it. So let's start from that point. What I do want to do is I want to explain the very first one, because I see a lot of it on social media, where EXP is not paying buyer's agent compensation. How many of you guys have heard that? Throw it in the chat box for me. That online? You're going to hear that a lot from agents. It's not just a little bit incorrect, it's incorrect. So what I want to do is I want to go through, this is a form that you'll take and do when you list a property. And so I don't need to go through the whole thing because it's pretty self-explanatory, but the portion in there, section 2, you guys can all see my screen now, right? If you're listening to this on a podcast, I know you can't see my screen, but I will put the links to these things in the podcast. One of the things that we as a company have decided to do is we're going to make all of this available to any agent, any company, we don't care, because this is an industry issue, not an agent or a company issue. So if you notice, I've got it highlighted in blue. It says compensation shall be in U.S. currency and paid at the time and as a condition of closing. This agreement shall act as escrow instruction for seller's payment of compensation to the buyer's broker. What that means, folks, is we're instructing title or whoever's closing it, some are attorney states, whoever's doing the closing transaction to send the compensation directly to the buyer broker. It doesn't go through EXP anymore. It simply goes directly to the. So let's say Jerry's at Remax and it's my listing and Jerry's getting paid 3%. Typically the money would come into EXP and they'd send a check to Remax. We're not doing that anymore. The seller is sending it directly to Remax, period. That's it. There's all kinds of legal and compliance reasons, right? Because the whole thing of this is the buyer needs to be able to negotiate the commission. So by having the buyer be paid from the seller, it takes us out as the middleman, which means we have less liability. Do you guys all understand that? This is a liability issue. I do believe you'll see within a few months, you'll see every company kind of resort to this same thing. This isn't anything fancy. It's not that we're not paying buyer broker compensation. The people saying that online simply are not educated. The opportunity that I've seen, folks, are the people that don't educate themselves on this. They're in for a lot of trouble. I want to make sure that we all understand that. And even if you're a non-EXP agent on this call or even listening to this call, doesn't matter to me where, that you understand is we still pay buyers compensation. And so anything said other than that is completely wrong. The forms just work differently. So at the end of the day, folks, we don't have that issue. Now, I'll give you the forms. I'll give you the links to the forms later. And the reason is you'll start opening them up and reading them and not paying attention. And what I will tell you is we're going to talk today in some detail that you need to pay attention to. Because what I will tell you is this is not something that you need to be afraid of. As long as you educate yourself and you don't take shortcuts, you'll be fine. So I heard Leo say something on, I think it was an interview with Tom Ferry. And basically what Tom Ferry said, I agree with. And Leo said the same thing. It doesn't matter if we agree or disagree with compensation and how all this happened and whether we think it's right or wrong. This is the reality we live in. So you deal with it. Don't try and figure out ways to get around it. I've actually seen agents talking about, hey, they'll put numerals in a certain word and make it bold. Just so you know, MLS is like the California CRMLS. They actually will take and be applying AI to read through comments and stuff like that in their MLS and hunt you down. So just do it the right way. It's not hard. It actually is perfectly fine, and you can explain it in a logical way to people as long as you understand it. That's why I wanted to do this class today. So what I do want to tell you is don't make this harder than what it is. And the easiest way that I can tell you is that very little has changed in terms of how we're paid or even how much we're paid. Because anybody from the outside doesn't understand buyer's agents' commissions have been varying for a long time. There was a point a couple years ago that 37% of every listing in MLS in Southern California, the 9 MLSs that make up Southern California, 37.5% of them are 1.5% or below. So agents have always had to negotiate their commissions and so forth. So very little has changed. And the easiest way that I think I can help you understand this, anything that relates to the word compensation or commission, take your pick, simply now becomes concessions. So you have a commission and compensation are now concession. If you just understand we're just switching words, makes life easier. We're switching words, but you got more paperwork to deal with. The difference now is the paperwork has changed and the process has changed, and it's going to add a lot of time to our workload. Just know that, right? If you want to call a seller's agent to find out, or a listing agent, to find out what kind of compensation is being offered, you're going to have to make a lot of phone calls. So at the end of the day, that part of it is definitely changed. For me personally, I have always trained and always worked under a buyer broker agreement. I just simply did not work with people that did not sign a buyer broker agreement. Now, I got skilled at being able to explain it, what the good and the bad is of each one. And either somebody wanted to work with me and I made sure I got paid, or they didn't. I always said it's the only way, in my opinion, that you should work, but it was totally optional. The difference now, it is not optional. It is mandatory. I want you to understand that. It is mandatory. It's so MLS audits your files, and they found out that you had them sign a buyer broker agreement when you wrote a contract. So let's say that on, what is today, August 6th, you write a contract on a property that you showed on August 4th, and your buyer broker agreement is dated August 6th. The MLS will instruct your broker and the title company to return your commission to the seller.
Let's not forget about the super lock boxes, Bob.
Well, that's another one. So I got a list of things that like we don't think about, right? And we're all going to unfortunately uncover these things, if you will. So what I will tell you, and again, this is my opinion, and I know it's going out for a podcast and everything else, and this is being recorded. I probably will put it out as a video too. Guys, in my opinion, this is a cash grab by the MLSs, NAR, and attorneys. It's an outright cash grab. So what you have to understand, if you do not follow the guidelines and have your paperwork done properly, again, this will vary by MLSs. In Arizona, your first offense is $2,500. Your second offense is $5,000. Your third offense is $15,000. And your removal from the MLS. So think of this. You use your lockbox key, your super lockbox key, on Sunday to show a property. You do realize that information is transmitted from Supra to MLS, right? So on Monday, your broker gets a demand for an audit for Jerry to show his buyer broker agreement for the property he showed on Sunday at 123 Main Street. You didn't have a buyer broker agreement signed. What's going to happen? You're screwed. It's in their best interest, folks, to catch you. We can say, oh, it's going to be because they want you to be compliant and everything else. No, somebody's got to come up with the $450 million they have to pay as part of the settlement. Attorneys will be doing the same thing. Attorneys are already advertising for secret shoppers to do listing appointments and to work as a buyer. So I know I told you don't be afraid of the changes, and then I'm telling you this. I get the hypocrisy of that. But if you do what you're supposed to do, you have nothing to worry about, period. But there will be some things that come up that make it difficult. So let me give you an example. I'm going on vacation. I have a buyer broker agreement signed with Robert. I call Jerry and say, hey, Jerry, I'm going on vacation. Can you cover my things? I've really only got one buyer looking at a house. His name is Robert. If he needs to see a house, can you go see it? Can you show it to him? What happens in that scenario, folks? Jerry, you want to tell him what happens?
Sorry, Bob, you cut out there for a second. Do that again?
You want to tell him what happens in that scenario, that you show properties for me while I'm on vacation?
I have to make sure I have the buyer's broker agreement signed or are signed, and then I can go show them the property, right?
Right.
If I don't have that signed, then I can get in trouble.
But Jerry takes the single property, or let's say he's going to go show 3 houses, and do a non-exclusive or a single property buyer broker agreement, and Jerry shows the house. Who's procuring cause now? That's right, Jerry is. Jerry's getting paid, not you. You go, oh my God, that's horrible. What do I do? If you're going on vacation, you do an addendum to your buyer broker agreement and add Jerry to your buyer broker agreement for the purposes of showing houses for the week of whatever date, this date to that date.
Exactly.
So you can get paid. You just have to do an addendum So I know we've never done addendums to buyer broker agreements before. Full disclosure, I haven't either, even though I've always used them. You just have to understand you'll need to have an addendum because procuring cause, just so you understand, in real estate is dead.
Yeah, that's the difference between because you're creating that fiduciary, another fiduciary with your buyers, like a listing, right?
So you need to understand that there's 3 types of buyer broker forms. There's a single property form, there's a non-exclusive buyer broker agreement, and there's a exclusive buyer broker agreement. And so, hang on, let me just check for questions. Say that again about the dates. So, Rebecca, all you'd have to do is if I was going to be on vacation from what is today, August 6th to August 13th, I would just do an addendum. Hey, Jerry may be the one showing you homes. I'm adding him to the buyer broker agreement so he can show homes while I'm gone from August 6th to August 13th. The reality of it is, guys, you don't necessarily have to put dates in there. So let's say I have a team and I've got, I don't know, call it 5 showing agents. When we sign a buyer broker agreement, what do you do in that scenario? I may not always be the one showing them. So what do? You list all the agents. Additional terms. Jerry Stapp, Alexis Stapp Fu, Connor Stapp, Robert Weichelt, Kieran Means are part of the Home Boss Group and will work with all of our buyers. That's it. Put them in the agreement. If it doesn't fit in the additional terms, do an addendum. You're just doing an addendum now. We're in the habit of doing it on listing agreements, but we're not on buyer broker agreements. All we got to do now is just understand something's going to change. You've got to addend the buyer broker agreement. Make sense? Did they come out with an official addendum to the buyer broker agreement? No. So this is what I was saying earlier, Darce. Every MLS, every state has different forms, policies. Some states, this is law. I seen a post in Facebook, and I typically hardly ever go on Facebook, but I've been going in these real estate groups to just see what agents are talking about in there. And the truth is, so many of them are screwed that like they don't even know what they're talking about. And at the end of the day, ultimately it will come up to the MLSs in the states to decide what they want to do, and then the brokers will enforce that. Right now, it's a free-for-all. I don't know that they're going to be really in a hurry to clean up the free-for-all, because guess what? They're getting fine after fine after fine. So there are no standard forms now. So if you're not an EXP agent, either on this call or listening, you have to go to your broker for instructions on what they want you to use. And ultimately, I'm going to tell you, they're going to probably send you to the MLS, or hopefully they've gone through and done their due diligence to tell you what forms they want you to use and what language goes in those forms, because there is nothing that's uniform anymore. Nothing. Some states have rules. Some states have laws. So like Iowa and Indiana, they pass laws saying you have to have a buyer broker agreement. In Arizona, it's just the Department of Real Estate that created a rule that says you have to do it. So literally one of the TV stations last week did a report on it, and what kept saying it was the law, it was the law, it was the law. And the truth is, the Arizona Real Estate Commissioner was on, and he never said it's not the law. It's Arizona Department of Real Estate guidelines and rules, because there's a difference. Laws are only passed by your legislatures. Rules are just passed by bureaucrats. So each state is different. Each MLS is different. Last week, CRMLS, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, said, hey, we're going to change this, and we're going to have a column that says seller concession, and you could put in either dollar or percentage amount. Department of Justice immediately sent them a cease and desist letter, and within a week, they now changed it to say seller concession, yes or no. Most MLSs that I'm aware of don't even ask that question, seller concession, yes or no. It's not in there, but that will vary from place to place and MLS to MLS. Eventually, I believe it will get standardized, but it's not right now. So the answer is, do your due diligence with your brokers and your MLSs. Don't do this. Don't make an assumption. Hey, I assume this. Assumptions will get you fined. So, yep, a little bit of learning curve, but go for it. And I know some of you guys have been calling me back and forth and going, hey, what do I do? And the answer is you got to talk to your broker. I don't know in your state. I will talk about home boss specific language. I guess this is as good a place as any to talk about it. We do not need to change anything that we do, folks. Home boss was built for this. We don't even need to. I've recommended some of you say seller concession. You can call it agent compensation if we want. There's nothing stopping us from doing that, as long as we have it in writing from the seller. And I'll go through the listing agreement with you to show you where you do that. It's not like suddenly sellers, it's against the law for sellers to pay a real estate agent. That's not it at all. It just can't be in the MLS, and it must be 2 clicks away. So 2 mouse clicks away. The changes that we will make for home boss is what I refer to as the private realtor doc. We've called it a couple different things by state, where we outline, hey, this is the offer process and such. You would have a link to your site. Hey, for more information, go to the site. Take that out. That's not 2 link clicks away. That's 1 link click away. The reason you can't have anything about compensation in your private realtor remarks or your public remarks or any of that stuff about compensation, it gets syndicated to the Redfins, Realtor.coms, Homes.com, etc., Zillow. If they click on your Zillow link and it takes them to your home boss page, is that legal? Would you be in compliance if that happened? What do you guys think? I don't have you unmuted. Put it in the chat box.
I don't want to chance it at first, so let's see how that plays out.
So the real answer is, because we got some yes and no, it's 2 clicks. It's true. It could be 2 clicks. But here's the thing. If I put instructions in Zillow with a link to my home boss page and it goes to Zillow and somebody goes on Zillow directly to my home boss page, is it 2 clicks or 1? It's just 1. So it can't be anywhere in those private remarks, public remarks, or however, let's say I want to run a Facebook ad and I want to put the top of the page, 3% buyer's agent compensation. Can I do that? What do you guys think? The answer is yes, you can. If I want to get car signs put, the magnetic car signs that said, hey, I pay all buyer's agents 3% on my listings. Am I compliant? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. We got the yeses. It's not illegal to talk about compliance. I was talking to Robert the other day. I was telling like the email flyer companies, they send it out to every agent in your market, whatever, and it's $60 or whatever it is. Hell, on our home boss listings, I think we ought to start offering 3.5% and put that on the top of flyers and say, hey, we're offering 3.5% compensation to buyer's agents.
Put a rider on your post, Bob.
All that. Guys, every agent will start showing your listings. Daphne's got it right. Just as long as it's not in the MLS, we're good. That's it. So don't freak out about it. But that means you have to have those conversations with your seller and your buyer. Guys, there's nothing in this horrifically different than a normal buyer-broker agreement. To be quite honest with you, it's a little bit different design, but it's set up, right? Oh, the broker fee is not set by law and is fully negotiable. I don't even remember if that's in the old buyer-broker agreement or not, but there's nothing I'm afraid of here. It's a normal buyer-broker. David, I got everybody unmuted intentionally right now. I'll do questions. I don't mind doing it. Just I want to try and stay somewhat focused to go through that. So if you could just write down your questions, guys. This is the buyer-broker agreement. And it talks about collecting the fee, the broker fee from the seller. Buyer may choose to negotiate that the buyer-broker fee be paid in whole or in part by the seller through a seller credit to buyer at closing at buyer's instruction. Broker will write this request in the buyer's offer to purchase. That's not hard to explain, is it? Direct seller to broker compensation. Uh-oh. This is what everybody's talking about. Buyer authorizes broker EXP, can't highlight it all, to request the broker fee be paid in whole or in part by the seller to EXP at closing. They're saying, hey, we want our fee paid to us. Any such arrangement will be memorialized in a separate compensation agreement between the seller and broker. There's nothing scary in that, is there? Any amounts paid by the seller toward the broker fee shall reduce the broker fee to be paid by the buyer. In no event will broker retain a broker fee that exceeds what's specified in this section 6. So here's the conversation I want to have with you. You could have in a buyer broker agreement under that additional term section, you could say my fee is 3% for a resale and up to 5% for a new home, because there are some builders that are offering 4 and 5% commissions. What you need to understand in today's new world, whatever your buyer broker agreement calls for you to be paid is what you'll be paid. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you have a buyer broker agreement. You said, hey, I'll do it for 2%, but the seller's offering 3. You can only be paid 2. Period. You can go down, but not up. What do you think you should fill those buyer broker agreements out as? At least 3%. If you've got a lot of new homes and they are paying 4 or 5%, put 2 things in there. So that's the only difference in there, folks. There's this line. I don't remember if this was in the old buyer broker agreement either. Buyer acknowledges that broker may represent multiple buyers interested in purchasing the same property. That's just now in there, guys, to cover our butt. But how many guys are worried about or have seen the consumer saying, oh, hell no, I ain't paying an agent anything. I'll go right to the listing agent. You guys seen that? Throw in the chat box for me. I have. Man, what I can tell you is last week in that article in the Phoenix news station, man, the comments in there were like, I'll die before I would give a real estate agent any money, and it was horrible. Would it be illegal if we put in that additional term section, buyer instructs buyer broker agents not to show properties where the seller is not offering compensation? Would that be legal or illegal to do? What do you guys think? Legal or illegal? Got some legal, got some illegal, completely legal. I'd love to tell you I actually thought of that. I didn't. It's actually how they do it in Canada. If this is just a normal clause, like this would be a clause in their buyer broker agreement. It's just a normal clause and the buyer checks it off. Yep, don't show me anything. You can request the same thing. The question is, should you do that, right? So, and just so you know, Holly and I had this conversation yesterday about can we do that? And her answer was yes, absolutely. The next question, though, is should you? Because what if a seller doesn't offer compensation in whatever, right? We call the listing agent. Hey, are they doing it? And they go, nope. But 3 weeks later, the house didn't sell. And now they go, oh, you could have sent it in your offer. You probably wouldn't have shown that house. That's all. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I would have that conversation up front with the buyer. Hey, listen, the game's changed. Most sellers are paying it. It's now usually referred to as a seller concession. Most agents are paying some or all of that fee to the agents. But you do have the ability to instruct me to say, Bob, I don't want to see a house if I have to come out of pocket on it. And we simply won't go and look at those homes. Now, imagine if you had 5, 6, 7 buyers you were working with, and in a listing presentation, you sat down and showed those to the seller who said, oh, hell no, I watched this stuff on the news. I know I don't have to pay a commission. And you started showing them these buyer broker agreements where they're saying, but folks, you need to understand, buyers are instructing real estate agents not to show those properties. Do you really want to do that? They can say yes or they can say no. It's up to them. 6 months from now, folks, I think this will more have settled down because, well, it's all new. But you have the ability to put those terms in there. For our Home Boss members, I'll come up with something and I'll run it by Holly to make sure that, hey, the language is right to do that. What happens if a buyer comes into your open house? Do you need to have a buyer broker agreement signed for them? What do you guys think? Oh, sorry, you can't come into the house until you have a buyer broker agreement signed with them. Yeah, they don't. Open houses are exempt from that. What happens if you came to the open house and a day later you go, hey, could I see that thing again? Do you need a buyer broker agreement? Yes. A couple people said no. You do. Here's the thing, guys. Let's say you're unsure. You can always call your broker. You could always call your MLS. Or the easiest thing is say, you know what? Cover my butt and just get one. Here's the thing. All agents have to do it. Now, I promise you that there will be plenty of agents who will not explain it to people and not follow these rules. I promise you. You just don't have to be the one. So they go, I talked to another agent the other day, and he told me I didn't need to do that. Just know his days as a real estate agent are coming to a close very quickly. Because we are bound by the rules and guidelines, and I'm speaking Arizona, by the Arizona Department of Real Estate, which instructs us it's mandatory for every buyer to have one. They can still go, bullshit, I'm not doing it. If that's the scenario, what do you think the answer for that one would be? I'm going to unmute you guys, but do me a favor. When I unmute you, just make sure you mute yourself if you're not talking. Fair enough? Because you're going to have questions on it. Because here's the thing, guys, there'll be a million different options for people to screw up. I hate to say that, but it's going to be the way it's going to be. Many will not follow these things. Many are just uneducated about it and refuse to get educated about it. If I miss you, just let me know. I'm just trying to go through and get everybody. So there will be plenty of people, but don't sit there and go, this agent didn't do it, so I'm not going to do it. I promise you that's not a good strategy. Here's the other thing. All these MLS fines, right? So let's say you get fined $2,500. Does your broker get fined too? Everybody should be unmuted now. Does your broker? They don't. So I'm just going to give you an example. $2,500 to the agent, $7,500 to the broker. 75, 15,000, 25,000. Have 3 agents screw up. That broker is probably going to be out of business. Good time to start talking to independent brokers and get out from underneath that. Because they don't have the lawyers and such that EXP does and some of the bigger companies do to go through this. Not only does the agent get fined, but the broker gets fined because it's their job to be teaching them. And I can tell you, I've talked to a couple of agents that work for independents, and they're like, no, we haven't gotten any instruction at all from our broker. So those people are going to bring transactions to you, and they don't have it done properly. What's your responsibility? Don't let them screw up. So you just need to understand that it's just more forms. And as long as you have these conversations, it's okay. So I want to go to the listing agreement because there's some things in there. And hang on, I've got some notes here. I want to make sure I covered them all. Oh, how many of you guys have ever used Swami? Anybody used it? Okay, so there's showing services, right? So it's my listing, whatever. Whatever. I have you do it. I have a buyer broker agreement with the buyer. You go show it to them. You have them do a single property buyer broker agreement. Who's getting paid?
Shawami.
Swami guy or gal. Yep. Does that mean you can't use them anymore? No. Addend your buyer broker agreement, or quite honestly, guys, if you use them as a normal part of your business, then you would write that in. You might not know the agent's name, but you can come up with language, or your broker could come up with language for you. I don't even want to tell you to call me because I want you to call your broker because every state's different. But you can come up with language in your buyer broker agreement to have that happen. But if you just let a Swami person go and show the house, they're going to sign a single property buyer broker agreement and they're getting paid. Remember, there is no procuring cause anymore. Those are dead. Expect the audits to increase. I talked about that. Don't freak out and just do things right. So let's go to the listing agreement. Any questions on the buyer broker agreements? No? Okay. Any questions on the direct compensation agreement? This, by the way, needs to be filled out, at least for the EXP agents. This needs to be filled out and signed by your seller as part of your listing package.
An additional page now.
It's an additional.
Bob?
Yep.
Bob,
Yep.
if you have a listing that you've done prior to the dates of all this going into force, and maybe you have it for 6 months or whatever, do you have to retroactively go back and change anything, or you're basically grandfathered under the old rules?
The logical answer would say you're grandfathered,
I agree.
but I would tell you, you know what? Just cover your butt and redo it and just explain why. Because at the end of the day, folks, you just need to understand there will be T-O-N, of people looking to turn you in. So here's the thing. It's my listing, or I'm sorry, it's my buyer broker agreement, and I have Robert show it. I met Robert at his open house, or I met whoever at the listing agent at the open house with my client. But I go back because I'm on vacation and I have Robert bring him back for the second showing. Do you think there are going to be listing agents out there that would turn us in for not having a buyer broker agreement? Because when Robert walks in, that listing agent goes, "Let me see your buyer broker agreement." They go, "Oh, it's with Bob." It's all over. So you have to understand there are going to be real estate agents that are going to turn you in on top of it. That's why I said, hey, I want to open this up to anybody, any company at any time. Because, guys, we all need to work together on this stuff. It's the way it is. Here's our exclusive right to sell, our listing agreement, right? Property, I'm not going through any of that kind of stuff. Easy, listing price, not going through any of this. Listing broker compensation, I've highlighted. Listing broker compensation shall be paid by the seller in U.S. funds at the time of and as a condition of sale completion. This agreement shall serve as escrow instructions, and listing broker compensation is, whether you do dollar or percent, doesn't matter. Here's the important one that I want to talk about. That's all pretty standard language, right? For our Home Boss members, you would fill in what? 3%. That's your fee. We're going to talk about unrepresented buyers before we talk about buyers, though. If a buyer's not represented by a broker, because you see all over social media right now, consumers saying, I'm going directly to the listing agent. Screw you, I'm not signing anything. Will you write the contract and do all that work for no compensation? You guys are unmuted. You can answer that one.
No.
That'd be a hell no.
That'd be a hell no. That means I'm creating dual agency. Now, there are states that it's illegal. Again, this is why I tell you, state MLS brokers, talk to them. Some states it's against the law. But like Arizona, California, not against the law. They come to Robert. Hey, Robert, screw that. I'm not paying a buyer's agent. Hey, handle the contract for me, dog. I promise you, 75% of the agents will do it free. But here's what you just did, and here's what you have to explain to the seller. See, this, what I really like about this, guys, this forces you to have this discussion with the seller now. Guys, here's what's going to happen, right? Now, you can read it to them, right? Hey, the paperwork responsibilities in this scenario, we don't represent the buyer, but will facilitate the completion of necessary forms and ensure fair treatment of all parties. In this situation, the listing broker compensation shall be of the purchase price as reflected on the settlement agreement. So let's say I want to say, hey, if somebody comes to me, I want that to be 6% because I'm doing the work. What's the most important thing in this scenario that you're doing?
Liability.
Liability. We get paid what we get paid because we accept liability. Could you put 0 in here, Fred?
Yes.
You could. But you could put 6% in there too, right?
Correct.
The good news is up to you and the seller. Period. For me, personally, I would never take on more liability for no compensation. Here's how I would explain that to a seller. Mr. or Mrs. Seller, a buyer comes to me, says, hey, I don't want to pay a buyer's agent. I want you to do the work. First of all, could we agree it's not a good idea to work for free? But here's where it's important for you. In this scenario, I'm supposed to be an objective third party. Means I'm not necessarily representing you because that buyer may have told me that they were willing to pay more money, but I can't tell you that. The reason I can't tell you that, even though it says I'm not representing the buyer, 3 months later, the buyer finds out that I told you that. They go get a lawyer. You and I get sued.
Again, Bob, can you go back that same scenario one more time?
The buyers come directly to me as the listing agent and tell me, let's say the house was listed for $400, that they would pay $420 for it. Can I tell the seller that in that scenario?
No.
I can't. I have to act in a fair treatment of all parties. Is it fair I disclose to one party information that another party told me? No. The layman's term for that is lawsuit. They find out I told you that they were willing to pay more, so you hardballed the price. They find that out, and they go get a lawyer. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're going to court, and so am I. So the easiest way for me to do that, forget that I don't work for free and I don't accept liability for free. Best way that I can do that, you have to decide, and you have to decide if your state is a non-dual agent, we simply refer our buyers to another agent on our team. We don't do dual agency. Why? Because it's the biggest form of lawsuits. That kind of crap comes up. If every real estate agent said, listen, I'm drawing the line, I will not allow a buyer to come in and negotiate with me to do work for free to greatly enhance my liability, like you, whatever, double, tripled your liability, your chances of getting sued, and I'm not being compensated, I will not do that. That would stop the public from doing that right away. But I can't tell an agent what to charge, whether they do it for free, not free, 1%, 2%. Nobody can do that. That's a negotiation at this point with the seller. You need to tell them that this can happen. And they can instruct you however you want. Let's say they say to you, David, dude, I don't give a crap. I want you to sell a house. And if somebody comes to you and they could say the commission to do it, and they would buy my house, screw that. You do it. Do you take the listing?
Nope.
My answer is it's personal choice. I just don't believe we should ever be working, A, for free, B, to absorb more liability and not be compensated for it. All right, this looks like a pretty good place to stop for this week. And then I will play the remainder of this training class in episode 39. So we'll see you next week. And remember, as always, if you list, you last.